And before that was her appearance. There were 4 different examples of Radharani's appearance. And then we heard some nice understandings of Radha Tattva. So I had this nice discussion with someone the other day that wanted more clarification on Radha Tattva. I think that may be a nice place to begin. So in the big picture of knowing Krishna, because if there's a nice verse in Bhagavad Gita, I'm sure most of you know the verse. Janma karma chime divyam evam yoveti tattvataha chakva deham punar janma na. No more birth. Punar janma na. Not only no more birth, punar janma naiti mameti. You come to me. Go to Krishna. So is it possible to know Krishna without Srimati Radharani? Is it possible to know Krishna without Srimati Radharani? Not possible. So we have to know about Radharani. And a very simple way that we can go a little more deeper and get a little more deeper, a little deeper, a little deeper. But Radharani, one can say, Radharani is his eternal consort, his eternal Shakti. Just like Narayana, Lakshmi is to Narayana, or Sita is to Ram, Radha is to Krishna. That's kind of simple. Then during this first, it was the Sunday, no, it was Radhastami day lecture. There's a nice verse, I'll say it slowly, at least the first half of the verse. It's found in Adi Leela, Chaitanya Charitamrita Adi Leela, chapter 1, verse number 5. So it's like right at the very early part of the whole of this 17-volume book, describing who is Radharani. Because we're going to talk about her pastimes, we need to have a clear idea of who she is. So the verse goes, Radha Krishna Pranaya Vikritir Ladini Shakti Asmat. Ladini Shakti, the pleasure potency. Ladini Shakti Asmat. Next line. Ekatmanav api bhuvi pura deha bedha. Ekatmana eka atma. One entity. Eternally manifested in deha beda. Deha means body or form. And deha, beda, 2 forms. One entity, eternally manifest in 2 forms. One entity. Eternally manifest in 2 forms. For example, is there such a thing as sunshine without sun? No such thing. Is there such a thing of shine without the sun? No. Is there such a thing of Krishna without Radha? No. But they're one entity, just as the sunshine is to the sun, Radha is to Krishna. She's one portion. Now I'm going to go a little deeper. She, Radha, is the Ladini portion of Krishna's internal potency, or more technically, Swarup Shakti. Swarup Shakti. The potency of his own identity is his Swarup Shakti. Krishna is not separable from his Swarup Shakti, but the energy and the energetic are in 2 categories. And they're manifesting in 2 forms, but one entity in 2 forms. So the Swarup Shakti of Krishna, she's one portion of that Swarup Shakti, the Ladini portion of that Swarup Shakti. There's 2 others. Sanskrit terms are Sandhini and Sambit, but many of you know a really easy one. The invocation verse for Sri Ishopanishad. It's really nice, really simple. Ishvara Parama Krishna Satchit Ananda Vigraha. Satchit Ananda Vigraha. Vigraha means form. And its form has these aspects. Sat, an eternality aspect. Chit, a cognizant aspect, all-knowing aspect. And Ananda. So Radharani is the Ananda portion. And there's Samvit and Sandini. Samvit means to know. Samvit means to know everything, or all cognizance. Chit. Sat is the existential potency of the spiritual world and Krishna and everything that's connected to Krishna. And that's the Sandini potency. The Chit potency is his cognizant potency. And the Ladini is the Ananda portion of his own existence, his Swarup Shakti. Shaktiman, the possessor of Shakti, and the Shakti, his Swarup Shakti. Ladini, Radharani, is a portion, very essential portion of Krishna's own Swarup Shakti, his own internal potency. So why am I doing that? Because when there's pastimes of love between Radha and Krishna, it's nice that the pastimes are very attractive. It's really easy to get lost in these very attractive pastimes. So it's a little bit of a challenge to bear in mind this is simply Krishna enjoying his own potency. The potencies of Krishna move according to the ichcha, or the desire of Krishna. Krishna doesn't have to do anything. For example, to lift Govardhan Hill. We all know about Krishna. You know about Krishna lifting Govardhan Hill. How did he do it? Do you know how he did it? He lifted the hill with his left hand, not his right hand, but his left hand. And not just his left hand, but the little finger of his left hand. The little finger of his left hand. Now, who can do that? Now, he didn't even need to lift the mountain with either hand. He could just, ichcha. He just desires, and there goes the mountain. And he can create unlimited numbers of mountains without any effort, because he just ichcha. He just desires, and voila, there it is. Or bhavati, there it is. But he performs a pastime of lifting a hill with the little finger of his left hand and holds it up in the air for 7 days. No one can do that. What to speak of a little boy not eating or sleeping for 7 days? No way. No way. He was 7. Any little boy can not eat or sleep for 7 days? Do anything else for 7 days? It's not normal, but it's a pastime. Like that, Krishna has, here's a nice teaching. When I hear a nice teaching, one of many nice teachings about Krishna comes from Jiva Goswami. We've been training this young boy who the 6 Goswamis are. 6 Goswamis of Vrindavan, and one of the most prolific of them was Jiva Goswami. He was the most prolific. He was from Lord Chaitanya to Rupa and Sanatan and Jiva Goswami. And Jiva Goswami trained the next in line in disciplic succession also. He was a hero. He wrote 4 different commentaries on Srimad Bhagavatam. And one of them was a mega commentary. It was the topics of Srimad Bhagavatam, topic by topic, in 6 categories. Just the translation of his book, of just the Bhakti Sandarbha is like that thick. The 6 Sandarbhas sit on your bookshelf like this. Anyway, in one of those 6 Sandarbhas, Sandarbha is just a name of a certain type of literature that has a certain style, etc. So it's a Sandarbha. But the Bhagavat Sandarbha, towards the very beginning, he writes, in order to understand Bhagavan, it's essential to understand one thing, and when you understand that one thing, then you can understand Bhagavan. It's like understanding Radha to understand Krishna. To understand Bhagavan, you must have a clear idea that Bhagavan means, God means, he has unlimited and inconceivable potencies. So 2 adjectives, unlimited and inconceivable potencies. Take that away from God and it's not God. If that is invested in one entity, that's God, that's Bhagavan. Unlimited, and so with his unlimited and inconceivable potencies, he can do anything. It's not subject to our little binary processor called the mind. It's inconceivable. The mind can't stretch and stretch and stretch and stretch and stretch. And then now I got it. That's not how you can understand. It's not possible to understand by that method. An often quoted verse I like, Prabhupada quoted it a lot, also from the same Brahma Samhita. Fantastikoti saravatsara sampagamyo vayor atapi manasopani pungavanam sopyasti yad prapadasinya avachincha tatve. Inconceivable potencies, avachincha tatve. And so that inconceivable potency cannot be understood if you have a vimana that travels at the speed of vayor atapi, an airplane that travels as fast as the wind or as fast as the mind. So build a ship, a spacecraft that can travel as fast as the mind. How fast can the mind travel? Some of you are from India. Interesting, huh? So imagine you're sitting here in Austin, Texas, and you think of a place that you grew up or something you know about India. How long does it take for the mind to go there? That's how fast the mind is. And if you had a craft that can travel the speed of the mind and travel for millions and millions and millions of years, still this realm of the spiritual realm of Krishna is far beyond. You can't go there with the mind, in other words. It's inconceivable. Avachincha tattve. Inconceivable potencies, inconceivable reality. And that same Krishna descends once in a day of Brahma, and when he comes with Radharani, naturally, because they're inseparable. And they perform activities together that, to us, they're quite inconceivable. But it's Eka Atma, one entity, manifest in 2 forms, and according to the desire of Krishna, he can lift Govardhan Hill, or he can do whatever he likes. And he likes. He enjoys loving exchange with his devotees, and especially Srimati Radharani, because she's his Ladini Shakti. She enjoys his enjoyment, and he enjoys her enjoyment, and that's the nature of divine love. And so we're going to hear some of those pastimes. I'm going through this because we're going to hear some wonderful pastimes. In the background, or the backdrop, it's like, when you have deities, you don't just have deities, you have a backdrop, you have something behind them. And the backdrop is meant to enhance the outfits and the flower ornaments and everything. So the backdrop of the pastimes We're going to number 4 shortly. The youthful pastimes of Radha and Krishna. The backdrop is, it's just Krishna's enjoying his own pleasure potency. And his pleasure potency is personified as he is personified. And they're enjoying together. And he doesn't have to do anything, but he's just enjoying. Prabhupada tells the story of one of Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur's disciples, his godbrothers, was a professor from Germany. And during the early 1900s, which was when Bhaktisiddhanta was doing his work, his giving Krishna Katha to the world, this German professor came to India on a quest. His quest was firsthand, rather than just reading books, firsthand, he wanted to experience the form of the Supreme. So he visited various temples, and he told this to Prabhupada because they were godbrothers. He became an initiated disciple of Bhaktisiddhanta. I visited many temples, and I saw all the temples, they were doing something. The deities were doing something. Durga's doing this, and Shiva's doing that, and this and that. But Krishna doesn't have to do anything. He's just playing a flute, and he's enjoying with Radharani. So I reached that conclusion. He is the Supreme because he doesn't have anything to do. He does things through the agencies of his potencies, but he doesn't have to do anything. It's right in Bhagavad Gita. He does things, but he doesn't do things, which just sounds like a double talk. But he does things through his potencies, and therefore he doesn't have to lift Govardhan Hill. He doesn't have to have pastimes with Radharani, but he has pastimes with Radharani for his pleasure and her pleasure. So here's some youthful pastimes of Srimati Radharani. Now that we have the backdrop in place. So we're going to start with a place that's known as Kokilavan. Kokilavan. What's Kokila? It's a cuckoo bird. Kokilavan. And one of the places, the primary place, it's one of the forests of Vrindavan, Vana, Kokila Vana, where many Kokilas stay. And it's in the easterly direction from Varsana. What's Varsana? Varsana is the place where Radharani's father, King Vrishabhanu, built this palace for her when she married. And the palace was customized for Radharani. Up on the roof, there was a dome, and the dome had a place for gazing at the moonlight. And there's some description. So Varsana is the place. And King Vrishabhanu was Radha's father, and he built this palace. Now, how we heard earlier about Radha's appearance, now this is a little bit about Radha's marriage. This is a nice topic. You know, was Radha married or not married? Not married. But, listen to this. According to Garga Samhita, you know who's Garga? Garga Muni? Remember from this morning? Garga Muni was the one who did the name-giving ceremony for Krishna Balaram. Garga Muni was a super astrologer, and he was he did yagyas for the residents of Mathura. His main base was in Mathura. He was the main priest for all the Kshatriyas and Brahmanas in Mathura. So Garga Samhita is spoken by Garga. It's accepted as an authoritative text. And in that text, he narrates during the 1 year that Krishna manifested himself as each of the cowherd boys and each of the calves. You know the pastime? Should I narrate the pastime? You want to hear the pastime? Sure. It's long, I'll make it short. One time, Krishna went with the cowherd boys into the forest for herding the calves. At this time, he's just 6 years old. It's before the Govardhan Lila, because then he was 7 years old. When he was just 6 years old, they were with the calves. They hadn't graduated yet to the cows. He was with the calves. And when they were traveling in the forest, near Govardhan Hill, they saw this giant creature that was named Aghasura. Agha means sin. That's not a nice name. Aghasura, a demon that's just sin personified. Aghasura took the form of a humongous serpent, so big that his upper jaw was touching the clouds. A really big guy. And the cowherd boys came along and they saw this giant serpent. They thought, what's this? We've never seen this before. And some said, maybe it's just a place that Krishna created for us to play. And then others said, no, look at his big fangs, a giant serpent. Let's run. And they started to run. The other boys said, no, no, no. Even if it's a giant serpent, no worries, because Krishna has always protected us, so everything will be nice. Let's go inside and see let's look around. So off they went, fearless. A little foolish, but fearless. And because they went charging into Aghasura's mouth, the calves followed right behind with their tails raised, and because that's all they did. It just followed behind the cowherd boys. They were having fun. Krishna saw. And Krishna was, oh no, how are the cowherd boys going to bear not seeing me? For even a moment they can't bear not seeing me. He was struck with wonder by his own Yogamaya potency. And then he started to consider, just see how marvelous is my Yogamaya potency. Even my Icha can't stop the cowherd boy from entering. You got it? Because his desire does everything, and Yogamaya is enhancing his pastime by giving him this feeling of apprehension, which he is enjoying out of his love for the cowherd boys. And then he enters into the mouth of the Aghasura demon, and the Aghasura demon, I got you, and he closes his mouth. So what did Krishna do? He made his body bigger and bigger, and so the serpent, also the body expanded and expanded like a python. It expanded and expanded. But Krishna expanded so big, he lost his life air, and his life air went zooming out of the top of his head, and Krishna went dancing out of the mouth of Aghasura along with the cowherd boys. And the boys saw this effulgent light, which was the soul of Aghasura, hover in the air, then merge into Krishna's body. And they said, wow, that was good. Let's go have lunch. Because they were used to Krishna doing amazing things all the time, at least twice a day, with killing a demon. It was very nice. The time for demons to come was generally around 11 o'clock. Because after lunch, that was a sign, stop playing, go have lunch. After the killing of the demon. And then one would come in the afternoon, and after the afternoon, it was the sign, okay, now it's time to go back. Because otherwise, they would have just been playing and playing and playing, because, boys will be boys. So after the Aghasura demon was killed this way, Lord Brahma, you know who is Lord Brahma? The creator, 4 heads. And so Lord Brahma came to take darshan of Krishna in Vrindavan, knowing that Krishna had appeared during this particular day of Brahma. During this particular day of Brahma, he came at the right time, and he saw the whole pastime. And he thought, wow, what's the extent of Krishna's powers? It was a nice question. inquisitive thought. But he took it too far. So he decided to test his power against Krishna's power to see what Krishna would do. So Brahma took the calves and put them in a cave. They were started grazing, and he gathered them all up by his mystic powers, put them in a cave. And then the boys said, wait a minute, where's the cave? Where's the cowards? The calves. And Krishna said, don't worry, I'll find them. You continue with your lunch. So Krishna got up to find the calves, and Brahma took all the cowherd boys and put them in a cave. And he came back to see what's Krishna going to do. What did Krishna do? Krishna expanded himself exactly as each of the calves and each of the cowherd boys, so much so even their mothers didn't recognize it wasn't their son. Is that possible? Those of you that are mothers, you're not going to recognize who your son is. But Krishna can manifest her son, so he can manifest the likeness of their son, no problem. And what happened was, by Yoga Maya's arrangement, for 1 year, Krishna became the son of each of the mothers of those boys, because they desired to have Krishna as their son. So Krishna became their son. By manifesting, the mothers didn't know. For 1 year, imagine. So during that 1 year, an earthly time, Krishna made a suggestion. This would be a really nice time for all the cowherd boys to be married to cowherd girls. Because in Vedic times, marriages would happen when they were young. They didn't live together, but just they knew who they were going to be married to. And Prabhupada describes once a year, they'd cook something or bake something or make something, a cake or sweets or burfi or whatever it was. And then they bring it to their husband. Oh, you're a good cook. And they, by that sharing, they had some affection. And then when they were old enough, they would get married. I mean, they would live together. But they were already married when they were young. So Krishna suggested this would be a very good time. Purnamasi thought, very good. So all the cowherd boys, which were Krishna, married cowherd girls, which were cowherd girls. So Krishna married all the cowherd girls. You got it? So this is described in Garga Samhita. And when Radha was married, she married Krishna, who was taking the form of Abhimanyu. And Abhimanyu, we know who the name of Abhimanyu's mother, it's Jatila, and his sister's name was Katila. We don't hear what Abhimanyu's father's name is. We don't hear his name. I've never read his name. Okay, so this is Radharani married Abhimanyu this way. So-called marriage. It's said many, many times. Abhimanyu actually never even touched Radharani, what to speak of anything else. Or, here's a second explanation that comes from Rupa Goswami's Vidagdhamadava. Vidagdhamadava. Radharani had a grandmother. She had a mother, and she had a grandmother. Her mother's mother was Mukhara. So Mukhara was really concerned about Kamsa's bad conduct and lusty nature. And so she, Radharani's grandmother, shifted Radharani from Vrindavan to another village, Santanuvas. Then later she arranged this marriage with Abhimanyu so that Radharani would be protected from the lust of Kamsa. It's in Vidagdhamadava. So those are two explanations of how Radharani became married to Abhimanyu. And there you see in the background, the palace. And here's a nice picture of Mukhara. So In the back area behind the palace of Radharani in Varsana, there's a Kokila forest. And this is taken from Bhakti Ratnakar, very nice text, where Krishna was desiring Radharani's association. So what did he do? He went into the Kokila forest and started calling like a Kokila bird. And you know what birds are like. Maybe you've heard this somewhere in India when peacock makes a peacock sound, then they all start a peacock concert. They respond, and then it gets quiet, and then, so Krishna made this Kokila sound. And Jatila was she heard this wonderful sound, and Lalita was with Radharani, said, "Oh, listen to that very sweet sound. In the middle part of the day, we usually don't hear. It's only at night. Can we go see?" And she said, "Sure, you can go see. The Kokila birds making their Kokila sound, the cuckoo sound." And so when they went into the forest, sure enough, there was Krishna making the Kokila sound, along with, you can see in this drawing, number of Kokilas, their beaks are open. The gopis knew it was Krishna, and they were able to enjoy with Krishna in the Kokila forest. And after some time, they returned. That's from Bhakti Ratnakar. There's a separate discussion of this in Ujjvala Nilamani. What's Ujjvala Nilamani? Some of you are familiar with Prabhupada's books, where Prabhupada wrote Nectar of Devotion, a summary study. Nectar of Devotion? Yes? No. Nectar of Devotion? Yes. Nectar of Devotion is one of Prabhupada's translations. Those of you, when you get to the point of studying Bhakti Shastri, it's one of 4 books that you'll study. Nectar of Devotion by Rupa Goswami. And the Sanskrit of Nectar of Devotion is Bhakti Rasa Amrita Sindhu. Sindhu means an ocean of the nectar of devotion. Bhakti Rasa Amrita Sindhu. In Bhakti Rasa Amrita Sindhu, he goes to a certain limit for his readership. He doesn't intimately go into Radha and Krishna's pastimes. Ujjvala Nilamani is, you could say, it's like part 2 or sequel, where he really gets into it. So Ujjvala Nilamani is written by Rupa Goswami, describing many, many, many wonderful. It's a book describing rasa, the loving exchange between Krishna and his devotees of different kinds. Different kinds of cowherd boys, different kinds of elders, different kinds of gopis. Very, very tasty. Sublime. So in Ujjvala Nilamani, again, Krishna was missing Radha's association, so he went into this Kokila forest, and he was making a Kokila sound. No, actually, he wasn't in the forest. He went into the courtyard of this big palace, or palatial building, because structures would sometimes have courtyards. Inside the courtyard, there was a pilu tree. This is a photograph of a very big pilu tree. So some pilu trees aren't that big, but pilu tree. And he went up, he climbed up the pilu tree, and he started making the sound of a Kokila bird. Jatila, Radharani's mother, suspected mischief, because Kokilas don't make that sound at night, they make it during the day. So she understood, this isn't a Kokila bird, this is mischief. So, but she couldn't see very well, kind of like half blind. So she took a stick, and she was taking her stick and hitting the tree and hitting the ground and calling out, whoever this is, you're in big trouble. So it's saying heavy things. Jatila protecting her daughter, Radharani, whoever's in here. And so Krishna stayed in the tree, unable to meet Radharani. After some time, and he stopped making the Kokila sound, the cuckoo bird sound. After some time, Jatila fell asleep. So very softly, Krishna started making the Kokila sound again. Radharani heard the Kokila sound, and they were able to converse with one another. Krishna on top within this pilu tree, and Radharani in her quarters. Before the night ended, Krishna climbed down the pilu tree. Jatila was still asleep, and he left. When the morning came, her so-called husband Abhimanyu came in the palace and into the courtyard, and he saw his mother Jatila. It's not Radharani's mother, Radharani's stepmother, Jatila. He saw his mother asleep. Mother, Jatila, what are you doing? And she told the whole story. She heard this sound, and I'm sure there was some mischief. And he said, Jatila, I think you're crazy. Nothing to worry about. But since you're worried, I'll lock the gate so no one can come in and it won't happen again. And Jatila was very happy with that solution. The next night, Krishna came. And when Krishna came, this is from Ujjvala Nilamani, when Krishna came, the gate was locked. So what did he do? He went to the back area where there's some berry trees. This is some photographs of berry trees. A berry tree is an Indian plum tree. And Krishna started making the sound of a Kokila bird. And Radharani could hear him, but the gate was locked. She couldn't go join Krishna. So Krishna spent the night in this tree, feeling great separation from Radharani. And Radharani feeling bound up in her prison-like home where she couldn't go and meet Krishna. Rupa Goswami wrote another book called Padyavali, and he quotes one poet, Sri Hara, in this way. When Lord Krishna arrived in Radha's courtyard for their rendezvous, his tinkling ornaments sounded like the cooing of cuckoos and other birds. He suddenly heard the door open, and he also heard the continual jingling sound of conch shell bracelets when he heard the arrogant Jarati call out, "Who's there? Who's there?" He became pained at heart. He spent that entire night hiding in a tree in the corner of the courtyard. Now, he wasn't making a Kokila sound, but it's a similar pastime. So, the meeting of Radha and Krishna. And the obstacle, one of the obstacles, is Jatila. Now we're going to hear another pastime. This other pastime, it's a pastime sometimes called the pot with 100 holes. So Krishna was feeling separation from Radharani. And Krishna confided his feelings of separation from Radharani to Purnamasi. Now, some of you have been attending these classes, so by now you know who Purnamasi is. And for those of you that haven't been, Purnamasi is Sandipani Muni's mother. Who's Sandipani Muni? Krishna's teacher, very good. Sandipani Muni's the teacher when Krishna went to school. And Purnamasi is the mother of Sandipani Muni, and in the whole of the Leela, she's Yogamaya personified, which means she helps make arrangements for Krishna's pastimes through her own potency, Yogamaya personified. So Krishna confided in Purnamasi that there's all these bad things being said about me, and so Jatila's keeping us from meeting, and I don't know what to do. So Purnamasi comes up with a plan what to do. So it's a Leela. And the next morning, Krishna can't get out of bed. He can't get out of bed because he has this unstoppable fever. And so the ladies come together, and they try to figure out what to do. Krishna's moaning, oh, I got a fever. So they bring a doctor, they try this, they try that, nothing works. Finally, up there, okay. So finally, they call Purnamasi. Could you know what to do to help Krishna overcome his fever? She said, yes, I know some mantras, and there's mantras to the sun god, and I need the mantras and water from the river Jamuna, but very special water from the river Jamuna. It's water that has to be brought in a golden pot, because Yavat, where Radharani lived, and Nandagram, where Krishna lived, are some distance from the river Jamuna. So there's a golden pot that has 100 holes, and a perfectly chaste lady has to carry the water in this golden pot that has 100 holes back to where I can do these mantras for the sun god. It was a Leela. So they went, they have deep attachment for Krishna, so they went to the river Jamuna, and now Purnamasi was asking, so who's the lady that's going to be the perfectly chaste lady that can carry the pot that has 100 holes and the water won't come out? So the way that this is described is that the lady said, well, I think she's perfectly chaste, and she says, I think she's, because they didn't want to be embarrassed and have the water leak out of the golden pot. So after they went around and around, finally they came to Jatila's daughter, and her name is Katila. So Katila was pointed to perfectly chaste. She's perfectly chaste. So she was proud, and she stepped forward, and she lifted the golden pot out of the water, and all the water leaked out because it had 100 holes in it. And she turned red and very embarrassed. I think my mother, she's perfectly chaste for sure. So Jatila came forward and lifted the golden pot from the river Jamuna, and all the water leaked out. She was totally ashamed. So then what are we going to do? What are we going to do? Krishna's got a fever. We have to get this water in this golden pot that has 100 holes. And so they said, let's try Radharani. We know there's rumors about Radharani, but I believe she's perfectly chaste. This is her girlfriends, Lalita and Vishaka, speaking on her behalf. Radharani, being very shy, didn't want to do. But sure enough, when she lifted the golden pot from the river Jamuna, all the water stayed in the pot. And they walked all the way from the river Jamuna, all the way back to Nandagram, which is a long walk. And Purnamasi said all the mantras and sprinkled water from the river Jamuna, from the golden pot, on Krishna. And Krishna opened his eyes and said, I'm hungry. Which is one of the signs that a fever has broken, because when you have fever, you don't have hunger. So everyone was very, very happy. And the demonstration was that Radharani is perfectly chaste. More chaste than those that were criticizing her. Katila and Jatila and anyone else. So it's a nice pastime arranged by Purnamasi on Krishna's behalf, that Krishna and Radharani could again be together where people wouldn't criticize Radharani for being unchaste. Now, here's 3 more Leelas that are specific to Krishna's not being able to tolerate separation from Radharani. And this is a very nice one, where Krishna accepts the form of a peacock. Remember, this is Krishna's internal potency, and it's all Leela, and it's Eka Atmanav Api Bhuvi Pura Deha Beda Gatauta. One entity in 2 forms. And Krishna's enjoying with Radharani. One day, while staying in Varsana, no, this is not Yavat where she was married. This is her with her mother, Radharani with her mother. What's Radharani's mother's name? Kirtida. So Radharani was unable to go to the house of Nanda Maharaj to cook for Krishna. We heard yesterday, when the childhood pastimes, Radharani had received a benediction from Durvasa Muni. Correct? Some of you were there. The benediction that Durvasa Muni gave to Radharani was 3 things. She, Radharani, would be able to cook in such a way that everything she cooked would taste different. Ladies, she would never make the same preparation twice. She didn't really wire a certain recipe and put it on the menu and become celebrated for a certain. Everything was tasting different. That was one benediction. The second is that anyone who ate the food cooked by her would live a long life and not have ill health. And forget the third one. So when Radharani told that to her mother, Kirtida shared that with her dear friend, Mother Yashoda. And Mother Yashoda made this request when Radharani was just a little girl, that your daughter, can you please come cook breakfast every morning for my son so he'll have this long life and he'll be very healthy and everything will be nice. Sure. So from childhood, Radharani was coming to cook breakfast. But one morning, Radharani was unable to go to the house of Nanda Maharaj to cook for Krishna. So Krishna couldn't see Radharani. Krishna felt very sad. So he went to Varsana, her parents' home, hoping that he might catch a glimpse of Radha. Krishna climbed on the top of a hill, and from there he looked upon the house of King Vrishabhanu, expecting to see Radharani. But she was nowhere to be seen. Then Krishna started to make the sound of a peacock, calling out to Srimati Radharani. Not a Kokila bird, but this is now a peacock sound. When Radharani heard the sound, she understood. It's not the sound of a peacock, but it was Krishna. She thought to herself, Krishna is calling out to me, but my mother may come to know it is Krishna and not a real peacock. Without informing her mother, Radha left the palace and went searching for Krishna, following the sound of his peacock call. Just following the sound, searching for Krishna. Finally, she found Krishna. After some time, they met on the top of that hill where Krishna was situated, and they had loving exchanges together. Krishna's decorating Radharani's braid with nice flowers. Here they're swinging on a swing, Radha and Krishna. As time passed, Kirtidas started to become anxious. Where's my daughter? She started searching for Radharani all over the place, but she couldn't be found anywhere. Finally, she came to the place on top of the hill where Krishna and Radharani were. Following the footsteps of Srimati Radharani, Kirtida reached the entrance of the cave where Radha and Krishna were exchanging loving talks. Uh-oh, here comes Kirtida. Krishna noticed Kirtida before Kirtida could see them. So what did he do? Krishna transformed himself into a peacock. And so to Kirtida it appeared that Srimati Radharani was sitting and caressing a peacock. Kirtida said, Radha, what are you doing here? I was worried because I could not find you for a long time. It's already lunchtime. Let us go back home. Radharani returned to the palace with great sadness, separation from Krishna. Krishna, after some time, transformed again from his peacock form to his Shyamasundar form and returned to his home for lunch. Pastime. Very sweet. And here's a really interesting one. Krishna appears as Kali. So I'm going to read. This is what I'm going to read from is a book called Srimati Radharani, and it was written and published by one of our ISKCON sannyasis, Bhakti Purushottam Swami. And here's the pastime. In the month of Magh, Krishna, after finishing his activities of milking cows, taking his bath, eating, Krishna went in the morning to graze the cows along with his cowherd friends. After some time, Krishna went away from the cows into the forest with his good friend Madhumangal. You know who's Madhumangal, but some of the people here may not know who is Madhumangal. Madhumangal was one of the sons of Sandipani Muni. Sandipani Muni was Krishna's teacher. Madhumangal was his son. So that means he was a Brahmin. And Madhumangal, came to Vrindavan with Purnamasi, his grandmother, even before Krishna was born, because she knew Krishna was going to take birth. She brought her grandson with him. And Madhumangal, very, very young, became a very dear friend of Krishna, a little older than Krishna, but he became a very dear friend of Krishna. A really important person in Krishna's pastimes, Madhumangal. So Krishna went off into the forest with Madhumangal, eager to meet Radharani. Krishna wanted to call Radharani by playing upon his flute. When Radharani heard the sweet sound of Krishna's flute, Vangsi, she became very eager to meet with Krishna. And she prepared items to bring for Krishna, some flower garlands, some nice sweets. She and her friends, her Saki friends, all decorated Radharani very nicely and went to meet Krishna. Now, this is when she was living in Yavat with her so-called husband Abhimanyu. And Purnamasi had made some prior arrangements where Radha and Krishna could sit together in a nice grove of trees with nice flower sitting places and very nicely fragrant and beautifully decorated. And Krishna is waiting for Radharani to come, having played upon his flute. So Krishna asks Vrinda Devi. Who's Vrinda Devi? Vrinda Devi is Tulsi Maharani personified, Vrinda Devi. There's a long description of who Vrinda Devi is. I won't go into it. But she assists Purnamasi in making arrangements for Krishna's pastime. So he requests Vrinda, please help me. Please find Radharani so we can be together. So Vrinda said, your wish is my command. Whatever you say, it will happen. For sure. I will do it immediately. I'll bring Radharani here very soon. Please sit in this nice kunj, this grove of trees that Purnamasi has arranged, and soon Radha will come. Very soon, Radharani came with Lalita and Vishaka, and they were seated on either side of Radharani, and Krishna was seated with them, and they performed arti for Krishna with all auspicious paraphernalia and making nice sounds, because they could sing very nicely, and they had a joyful time worshiping Radha and Krishna. Just while they were finishing arti, Radharani's mother-in-law came. No, Radharani's sister-in-law, Kokila. Kokila was always eager to find some fault with Radharani. She approached very quietly and looked through a hole in the kunj. There she saw Radha and Krishna seated together. Previously, Kokila had informed Abhimanyu, Radha and Krishna are meeting. But Abhimanyu didn't believe it. So now she's got them red-handed. Today, I must bring my brother here and show him. When he personally sees this, then he'll believe it. So she ran home. She found Abhimanyu. Abhimanyu was angry and wanting to really let Krishna have it if he actually could find out that what Kokila says is true. So he grabbed a stick, and Kokila and Abhimanyu are charging towards this kunj. And Vrinda Devi saw them coming. So when she called out loudly to inform Radharani, Radharani was in big anxiety, what to do. Krishna said, don't worry. Have you ever heard that anyone has died untimely by meditating on my lotus feet? Your husband is a devotee of Kali. I will accept the form of Kali. You pretend to worship me and sit next to my feet. So there she is, sitting next to Krishna's feet, who's assumed the form of Kali. And over on the left, that's Kokila and Abhimanyu with a stick in his hand. And he's really happy seeing Radharani worshiping his goddess Kali. But he starts with, he's in his angry mood because he thinks his sisters got the real story. Where is that Radha? Where is that Krishna? So as Krishna had transformed himself into this form of Kali, here's the description. Shama Kali, holding different weapons in his hands, java flower garlands on his neck, and a sindura on his forehead, wearing blood-red cloth, his flute hidden in his cloth, he showed his long tongue, just like Kali. Sitting at his lotus feet, Radharani was pretending to offer Kali puja, offering flowers in her hand. And Abhimanyu saw Radharani worship, let's keep it short. He saw Radharani worshiping Kali. He thought, this is fantastic. This is my worshipable deity. And my good wife, she's worshiping my worshipable deity. Oh, Radharani, Srimati, you are blessed. You are most pious. You are the most chaste. No one is more chaste in Brajamandala. Today my desire has been fulfilled after so long. All my doubts about you have been cleared. From now on, I will not tolerate anyone blaspheming you. Please continue worship of Mother Bhagavati in peace without anxiety. I'm now going to graze the cows. After saying this, Abhimanyu offered his obeisances to Mother Kali and left the Kunj along with Kokila. After that, Krishna assumed his original form. So without disturbance, Radha and Krishna and the other friends of Radha, they were able to enjoy together. Now there are some other paintings of the same pastime. Here's Kali with her tongue stuck out. This painting shows Kali with got a chopped head in her hand. In the backside, that's Abhimanyu and his sister, Kokila. And this is also, here's Krishna worshiping Kali by the side of the Govardhan hill. And there's another painting of the same pastime. Now this is a little different. Some of you, someday, may you all get to visit Vrindavan and don't just go there for 2 days and get in a taxi and go around Govardhan Hill. Go and spend some time in Vrindavan. And likely you'll go to Govardhan Hill. Likely you'll go to Varsana and Nandagram. Likely you'll go to the place where there's a nice temple of Vrindadevi. Really, really nice place. Not far from Nandagram. And one of the places you may also go is Yavat, where Radharani lived. So at Yavat, there was a pastime. Now they have this deity, kind of messy in front of the deity, but it's a similar pastime Krishna was enjoying with Radharani, very near to the palace, or Abhimanyu's home that was built by her father. And Krishna, here comes Kokila and so forth. Krishna said, don't worry, I'll assume the form of Kali. And he assumed the form of Kali. So there's Radha, and the Kali with her long tongue sticking out. And when Kokila saw, she was very happy. Oh, Radha's here worshiping Goddess Kali. So everything was nice. So now over a period of time, the ISKCON devotees actually made this deity to commemorate the pastime. And if you can see, look closely in the front, there's a painting or a photograph of Panchatattva, Lord Chaitanya and his associates. Now it's nice, not nicely kept place, but this is a pastime at Varsana where Krishna manifested the form of Kali. And here's the final pastime. Krishna hides inside a box to meet Radharani. So it's a very long pastime because of its length. I'm not going to go through the detail. I'll read some of the beginning parts, but it's a pastime that's written by Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur. Who's Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur? He's a very, very wonderful acharya who revived Gaudiya Vaishnavism in Vrindavan. He was very elevated personality. He gave shiksha or instruction or training to Baladev Vidyabhusan, who then under his instruction wrote a commentary on Vedanta Sutra. Very elaborate commentary on Vedanta Sutra. There's some history behind it. Most elevated personality. So there's 4 plays or 4 dramas that he calls pranks. And this is one of those from his book on Krishna's pranks. So the scene opens. Krishna is seeing his mother, Yashoda, filling a box with precious jewels, ornaments, garments, fine scented oils and, very expensive things, putting in a box. And Krishna sees his mother doing all this. Krishna says, "My dear mother, what are you doing at this time of the morning?" "My dear son, I'm filling up this box." Krishna, what is it that you are keeping so carefully within the box? "My son, why do you need to know? Just go now and play with your dear boyfriends." "I really want to know what you're doing. If you don't tell me, then I will not leave this room." Yashoda, within this box, I'm putting sandalwood sticks, jeweled pollen of the camphor lotus musk, red kumkum powder for making nice scented body ointments, and for making different kinds of dresses. I'm packing extremely valuable cloth, waist ornaments made of tiny tinkling bells, earrings, bangles, uncommonly rare lapis lazuli gems, emeralds, and pearls. That's what's going in the box. Krishna, are all these things you're packing in the box, are they for me? Or are they meant for my brother Balaram? My delightful son, I will tell you if you will listen. There is another box that I've already prepared for you, and it's much bigger than this one. It's filled with very valuable jewels and cloth. I have prepared a similar one for your brother Balaram. Krishna, if you are not preparing this box for me or for my older brother, then who are you preparing it for anyway? Who is such a dear object of your affection? Radharani. Very poetic answer. That's why I want to read this. It's so nice. Just as Providence has bestowed you upon me as a result of my meritorious austerities performed in the past, in the same way, there is one daughter here in Gokula who is like the medicine that sustains my very life. She is just like soothing camphor for my otherwise burning eyes. It is her clothing and ornaments that I'm keeping in this box. Lord Brahma has created many different feminine qualities such as beauty, good behavior, devotion to superiors, shyness, simplicity, humility, and so on. But there's one girl who is such that when all those good qualities take shelter of her, then only can they become great. Usually, if ordinary girls take shelter of such feminine qualities, then the girls become great. But there is one girl who is so wonderful that when all those good womanly qualities take shelter of her, then the qualities themselves thereby become truly glorious. This is most amazing. This girl's name is Sri Radha. And it is for her that I have natural love and affection. So Krishna, hearing Radha's name, he starts to have goosebumps. But he pulls his cloth over his goosebumps so he can continue his conversation with his mother. My dear mother, who is this girl? Whose daughter is she? And where does she live? How is it that you have such intense love and affection for her? Kindly explain everything to me. My dear son, listen. From the jewel mine of my girlfriend Kirtida's womb has arisen a sinless, matchless jewel of a daughter. By the shimmering waves of this jewel's aura, she is illuminating the sun itself. Usually the sun makes ordinary jewels shine brightly, but this daughter jewel, born to Kirtida and Maharaj Vrishabhanu, is so effulgent that her aura makes even the brightest summer sun perk up and shine more brightly. This girl is verily the personified austerities of King Vrishabhanu, and she lives at the palace that he made for her at Yavat, along with her husband, Abhimanyu. But just now her husband has arrived here at our home in Nandagram. He's outside with your father, the king Nanda Maharaj, tending to some household affairs. When Abhimanyu comes to this inner chamber to see me before leaving, then I will tell him in sweet words, "Oh, Abhimanyu, please take this box yourself, and carrying it back to your home, kindly offer it to your good wife, Sri Radha." Then there's a break. The break is, there's a maidservant named Lavangalatika, and she comes into the room. She says to Mother Jasoda, "There's some goldsmiths waiting outside to meet with you. You wanted to make some ornaments, so please go see them." So Yasoda says to Dhanishta, "Please supervise this box, make sure everything is going to be okay, and when I come back, I'll give it to Abhimanyu." So Mother Jasoda exits for a short while. Dhanishta also wants to see the meeting of Radha and Krishna. So Krishna says to Dhanishta, "I want to go meet with Radha. So we're going to take all of the ingredients from the box. You please make sure that the ingredients from the box gets to Radha." And Krishna climbed in the box. And Subal closed the lid. So as far as Yashoda knows, all the stuff she put in the box is in the box, but Krishna's in the box. Yasoda returned, and with her came Abhimanyu, and she gave a little speech, which is part of this drama. There's a refrain, it comes 4 times in the story, and it's what Abhimanyu is supposed to say to Jatila when he brings the box home. And gives it to Radharani. So she tells him what's in the box. There's this and that and the other thing, and it's all for your dear wife, Radha. So please give it to her, saying the following. From me to her, like, message delivered. Send somebody a text message. That's what we do these days. "Oh, you who give pleasure to my eyes. Oh, you who bestow fame and glory upon your mother, Kirtida. Oh, Radhe, within this box is Krishna. No, within this box, I have sent you an extremely brilliant aura. It consists of ornaments just befitting your body, and I'm sure that you will cherish them to the utmost. By all of these dear things, may you become radiantly decorated every day, thus achieving great fortune and happiness. May you become enthused with newer life forever and ever." Mother Yasoda has great affection for Radha, and she's prepared all these things to beautify Radha. So Abhimanyu is really happy. He's kind of a materialistic person. He's thinking, this is great. Now we're going to have all this wealth, and I can buy a lot more cows. That foolish, dull-brained cowherd Abhimanyu then begins to think to himself, "Today I become really rich. I have now become fortunate, successful. Judging by the weight of this box, I can just imagine how many heaps of pure gold and jewels must be packed inside. With all this wealth, I will purchase millions of cows. Just like my friend Govardhan Malla, I will have the goddess of fortune fixed permanently in my home." Who's Govardhan Malla? Govardhan Malla is the husband of Chandravali. Chandravali. His husband is Govardhan Malla. So he's kind of always trying to keep up with the neighbors. Govardhan Malla is one successful neighbor. So he's always comparing himself to Govardhan Malla and his wealth and his fortune and everything. So he's carrying the box all the way from Nandagram to Yavat. It's quite a distance. Not too long, but quite a distance. Carrying it on his head. Krishna's giggling inside. He gets home, shows the box to his mother. He repeats in the refrain what Yashoda said to say to Radha when he gives the box to Radha. Jatila has a little different disposition. Jatila became blissfully overwhelmed and begins to think, today, by the power of great fortune, a wonderful thing has happened. Attaining such a matchless gift today, my daughter-in-law will be very pleased with my son Abhimanyu. So they talk about how they're going to get the box to Radharani's room, and they get to finally figure out a way to do it. Seeing Abhimanyu coming with a large box on his head, Lalita and all the other girlfriends and maidservants perk up and feel supreme bliss. So he says to Radha what Yashoda said to say to Radha, what's inside the box. And when he leaves, then Lalita says to Radha, my dear girlfriend, this dreadful abode, Radha says to Lalita, this dreadful abode of my mother-in-law is completely pervading, only with the most depressing, miserable suffering. How is it that my left eyelid, arm and thigh are suddenly dancing without any reason? It seems as if there's no possibility whatsoever of observing such an auspicious sign here. What to speak of obtaining the benediction of seeing such a sign come true, as long as I'm trapped here in this horrible place? So Lalita says, it must be what's in the box. Let's open the box. And they decide to open the box. And what happens? Krishna comes out of the box. There's Krishna coming out of the box. Seeing him instead of valuable clothing, ornaments, and cosmetics, all the girls who are surrounding the box exclaim, aha! Oh my goodness! What is this? Oh! As they clap their hands joyfully, laughing and giggling, because Abhimanyu brought the box with Krishna inside the box, and they think it's like, this is really fantastic. Krishna, the abode of all artistries, feels fully satisfied in his own prestige, exhibiting majestic motions of such mild and soft, gentle manner. Lalita, she's the smart one. Lalita says, oh Radhe, this so-called decoration that has come is indeed glorious. Your husband, who brought it, is also glorious. Sri Yashoda, who sent it, is also glorious. And her message to you is also glorious. And this house, the place where this box is sporting, is also glorious. My dear friend Radhe, you have been ordered by Yashoda. Quote, you should become decorated by that which I have sent. That order was also repeated by your husband and mother-in-law. Therefore, strictly follow the order of your three superiors. Proclaim your own ideal behavior to the world by such practice of righteous etiquette. In other words, just become decorated with the jeweled ornament that was sent in the box, and thus dutifully honor the order of your three superiors. Radha becomes very embarrassed. And then she says back to Lalita, a rascal thief has stolen all the clothes and ornaments that were given to me by Ma Yashoda. Taking them out of the box, he has kept them in some other place while keeping himself hidden within. Go right now and explain all this to my mother-in-law Jatila, and quickly bring her here. Then Lalita gets the clue and says to Krishna, "Oh, clandestine rendezvous lover of Radha, rascal carried by Abhimanyu, you rode on Abhimanyu's head in order to rendezvous with his own wife, Sri Radhika. By doing this, are you desirous of seeing the earth become completely bereft of all chaste women? Well, all right, what's done is done. But now you should immediately return all the cloth and jewels that you stole from inside the box. If not, then by bringing Jatila here, I will expose the real truth of your so-called fame and glory." Sassy talk. Lalita. Krishna said, "Oh, my dear Lalita, your girlfriend Radharani is very crooked, and she is extremely skilled in serving her own selfish purposes. I entered this box while playing at home, and your girlfriend sent her husband to forcibly carry me away and the box, bringing me here just to be framed with this bogus accusation." And everyone was laughing and laughing. And then he said to Radha, this is the end, "My dear Radhe, I became fascinated by smelling the natural wooden fragrance of this box, sending all of the items it contained to you via Dhanishta. I then climbed into the box just to make myself nicely scented. Right at that moment, your husband happened to come along by chance and brought me here." So now Krishna's in Yavat, having this funny, not normally how lovers talk to one another, but Krishna's pastimes with Radharani are very charming. And it's one of 4 pastimes. The book has some very beautiful illustrations. Radharani made some beautiful illustrations for these pastimes. And there's more. And this particular drawing is from Shivaram Maharaj's book on these pastimes of Radha and Krishna. And this is just some. Go back to where we were. Youthful pastimes. So there are many, 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 and we'll continue 2 more. Well, at least tomorrow morning we'll do number 5. Playful pastimes. These are pretty playful pastimes. Just a quick comment, and then we'll see if there's some discussion. These pastimes are not found in Srimad Bhagavatam. Some of them are taken directly from Puranas, and some of them are awakened in the hearts of elevated devotees, where because of their mature devotion to Krishna, these pastimes literally take place within their heart, and by their mercy they share these pastimes. They're not just Harry Potter stories. They're not just fanciful creations from, a good author. They're pastimes of Krishna. And Krishna is enjoying with his devotees, particularly these pastimes are with Radharani. And one of the descriptions of the acharyas is the pastimes of Krishna move like the movements of a snake, meaning the movements of a snake doesn't sound nice, but it's, if you want to go from point A to point B, you just generally make a straight line. But a snake doesn't move in a straight line. Yeah, that's how a snake moves. So these pastimes are pleasure pastimes. And it's sometimes, it's talk, it seems like harsh talk. It's not a pleasure pastime, it's harsh talk. But there are loving exchanges that the harsh talk is more enjoyed by Krishna than by the submissive talk of others. He enjoys. He enjoys. And Radharani enjoys. There's a nice drama of Madhava Mahotsava. Madhava Mahotsava means festival. And in the book Madhava Mahotsava, there's a similar, it begins, it's written by Jiva Goswami, and it begins with Krishna supposed to meet Radha. There's an appointed time, she gets ready, and Krishna's late. So Radha's very anxious. And it turns out Radha sends some spies, dutis, and they see Krishna's enjoying with Chandravali. They bring the message back to Radha. Radha's pouting. So when Krishna comes, she tells her friends, don't let him near me. Tell him to get out of here. So Krishna comes and he hears this get out of here talk. So he tries this way, that way, it's get out of here. So he goes and he's very sad. And then he goes to Purnamasi. Purnamasi comes to find out what happened with Radha, how to pacify Radha. When Purnamasi gets there, Radha's gone. So Purnamasi is very concerned. Where's Radha? She looks and looks and looks. She finds Radha, listen to this, she finds Radha in a little cabin in the middle of a forest. And Radha's inside the cabin talking to herself, saying, why do I get like this? She's marveling at Yogamaya is influencing her to become angry at Krishna. And Krishna enjoys it. So why do I get angry at Krishna? I know who he is, but I love him. And there's no one else that I love. So why do I get like this? And Purnamasi's here listening to Radha speak like this. And she comes inside, puts her arm around Radha and says, Krishna may give up his life because you were so angry with him. Come at once. Let's save Krishna's life. So her mood changes. She comes back. Everything is nice. Krishna says, let's make you queen of Vrindavan. So the second half of the book is Radharani becoming queen of Vrindavan, although the book is called Madhava Mahotsav. It's a Radha Mahotsav. But it's a festival for Madhava to see Radha celebrated in this way. So it's the movement of a snake. And even Radha doesn't understand. It's Yogamaya influencing her to speak like this to Krishna, and Krishna to speak like he speaks to Radha. It's just a loving, it's not a lover's quarrel. Although worldly, there are lovers' quarrels that look pretty nasty when he says this to her and she says something nasty to him, and that's like, it's not delightful. But when it's an exchange between Radha and Krishna, it's different. It's different. It's altogether different. It's a mystery. I'll just say one last thing. I promise. One last thing. Some of you are familiar with Ramayana. Not at all. One of the features of Ramayana, there's, at least from the Sanskrit, it's translated in as sadness. It's a secondary rasa, sorrow. When it's found out, everything is joyful, joyful, joyful until Ram is banished. And Ram takes it fine. And then Ram tells everybody that he's going to not become the king or prince regent, and he's going to go to the forest for 14 years. And this sorrow and that sorrow, the other sorrow, the other sorrow, the other sorrow, the other sorrow. It's just, the English translations of Ramayana, the word sorrow just keeps coming again and again. It's like I got to stop reading this. It's too sad. So what's the mystery here? Here's the mystery solved. Sorrow is a secondary rasa, and each of the persons that Ram informs have a primary rasa. And they have different moods, so the sorrow is experienced by them in different ways. But the sorrow, the secondary rasas enhance the primary rasa, because after all, Ram comes back, and then it's nice again. But when they hear that he has to be banished and so forth and so on, it's sorrow and sorrow and sorrow and sorrow. I mean, Dasrath dies. Sumantra, Kaushalya, everybody, different kinds of, it's a secondary rasa that enhances the primary rasa. There's a section in Srimad Bhagavatam there's 8 prayers by Hanuman about Ram. It's in the 5th canto Bhagavatam. And Hanuman says in his prayers, 2 prayers, there's no question of Krishna, of Ram being separated even for a moment from Sita or Lakshman. They're inseparable, but there's separation. So what's the separation? It's the separation is a sorrow mood. Sita's kidnapped, then later Sita's banished. So sad. But it's an ecstasy. And he's explained, it's right in the Bhagavatam, and then Rupa Goswami explains it in Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, Nectar Devotion. You can read Nectar Devotion. When you do your Bhakti Sastri, you'll read it. It's an ecstasy. It appears to be sad. It's actually an ecstasy. It's a type of ecstasy. So similarly, back to these Radha Krishna pastimes, it sounds like sassy talk. A lover's quarrel. But it's an ecstasy. It's not the worldly thing as the perverted reflection of the spiritual thing. This exists because that exists. And when that exists, there's no taint of the touch of anything material. It's all spiritual. Krishna is enjoying with his pleasure potency in ways that we don't understand because it doesn't fit our duality picture. Our duality picture is, that's not nice. You don't talk like that to people, that's not nice. And when they talk like that to each other, it's not just nice, it's a loving exchange, an ecstatic loving exchange, because love has all variety. There's the perverted version, and there's the unperverted or pure version. And our acharyas are disclosing these kinds of loving exchanges to us. It's not in the pages of the Bhagavatam, but it's loving exchanges. It's very wonderful, very, very amazing, very eye-opening. And as one develops an attachment for the object, Radha and Krishna, it becomes even sweeter and sweeter and sweeter. It's sometimes compared to neem. Some of you know this science. But in meals, it's encouraged at the very beginning to take something very bitter. Neem chutney. They have different names for them. And it's like, but what it does is it stimulates digestion. So it's at the beginning of the meal. And you know how you start a meal with something that's really bitter, really bitter. But when you understand the science of it, it's healthy and helpful. And one who's accustomed to this develops a taste for it. Same with these wonderful pastimes of Krishna. One develops a taste for them. And it's part of the sweetness. Separation and meeting. Sambhoga vipralamba. Separation, meeting. Meeting and separation. And different, doesn't move in a straight line. So we're going to hear some more tomorrow morning. Playful pastimes. You'll like these. You're playful. Okay, let's see if there's some discussion. 8:30, gosh.
We have one question online.
We have one question online. Yes. There's somebody behind you with their hand up too. So do the online. Do the online.
This is from Keshav Madhav Das Prabhu. Hare Krishna Guru Maharaj. All the acharyas have their own specific style of writing. What type of Vaishnavas or audience does Jiva Goswami want to attract his writings?
You understand the question? I'll repeat the question. Jiva Goswami, one of the 6 Goswamis, had a particular style of writing, as does everyone. So what audience was he trying to attract? Well, a short answer is his writing style was very diverse, largely, not entirely, but largely he was writing to a highly educated audience. He was not writing largely for everyday people like us. In the Sandarbhas, it's as high as you can get. And that was his audience. And for people that wanted to know details and details, he gave the details and details in a very elevated and concise manner. However, there's other writings that were very simple, like this I mentioned, this Madhava Mahotsav. It was, very attractive. It reads like a story. So the answer to his question is his audience was diverse, but largely he was writing for a highly educated audience. He was writing concise truths, absolute, profound truths about Lord Chaitanya's teachings for the world, for the future. They stand to this day in that same position. So to read his writing, the Sandarbhas, it's not easy to understand them because they're very high, but he presents principles that will help people that aren't really high to at least understand the principles and follow the dotted line and be able to draw a picture of Krishna from his teachings. Behind you.
Hare Krishna Maharaj, very beautiful pastimes. Thanks for sharing. Maharaj, my question is, these pastimes are transcendental and we read a lot of these pastimes in Krishna book and Srimad Bhagavatam.
Yeah.
While we are in the sadhana bhakti stage, how do we incorporate these pastimes? Should this make it to our japa when we are doing our japa?
Well, I like saying it this way. When you get on a train, it's a good idea to know where the train's going. And this is where the train's going. And it's far away distance from where we are right now. But that's where the train's going. And we can't understand exactly because we're way over here and the destination is way over there. But it's filled with mystery, and it is very sweet. And it's meant for us to not just like read and say, wow, that was a nice story, but to literally become assistants for Radha and Krishna and the cowherd boys and all the other players in Krishna's pastimes, and become participants in these pastimes. So here's another way of saying the same thing. Once upon a time, I was a young boy. And I asked my mother and father, what's it like in heaven? We read about heaven. What's it like there? What do people do there? What's the travel advertisement? And they didn't have an answer. They just said, oh, isn't that cute? And then when guests would come, they'd kind of nudge me and say it, go ahead, say it. It was embarrassing. So I stopped, I asked the priest, he didn't have an answer either. So I stopped asking. But, the question, I got busy with school like many people do, and, and I stopped, got distracted. But I started asking those questions again. So this is, that question, what's it like there? When we read the Bhagavatam, there's a whole chapter that answered that question. Description of the kingdom of God. It wasn't just heaven. Description of the king is the 4 Kumaras entering the gates of Vaikuntha. What's it like in Vaikuntha? What's it like in the kingdom of heaven? That's the title of the chapter. Description of the kingdom of God. Wow. Now this is not just what's, the gates. This is inside. And it's not just Vaikuntha. It's Goloka and the pastimes of Radha and Krishna. And this is the spiritual world. So what are we supposed to get out of it? It's where the train's going. And what's our role? Not just be a spectator, be a participant in the wonderful pastimes. It takes qualification, become, go to the destination that the train is taking. It gives inspiration for you, for me, for us, gives inspiration to do the sadhana part of our spiritual practice nicely, so we can become pure, so we become eligible for these very elevated loving exchanges that exist in Krishna Loka with Krishna. It's quite different than this place. They may, the things may look the same in certain ways, but they're qualitatively very different.
Thank you, Maharaj.
Someone else.
Hare Krishna Maharaj.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you for the wonderful lecture. It was really kind of merged into those pastimes. So, yeah, I have one question. I have my deities here, Jagannath, Baldev, and Subhadra.
Yeah.
So, how can I keep pleasing them and increase my spiritual and be on the persistent on my spiritual journey without making any offenses?
Okay. Well, there's the rules and regulations, and there's the deeper appreciation of particularly Jagannath, Baladev, and Subhadra. So the rules and regulations is the part that you're asking, and learn from those that are a little proficient in deity worship. What are the vidhis, the rules of deity worship, and most important, 3 most important: punctuality. Now, if in home worship it's not as easy as it's imperative in temples, but punctuality, cleanliness, and sincerity. 3 most important elements in deity worship. Then the vidhis are in addition to that. So find someone that's knowledgeable and take a standard that you can maintain. There may be standards that are really, really, really high, and somewhere in between is somewhere, down. And so it's some standard that you can maintain, and then maintain the standard by regulation, and knowing that these are standards that are to be followed, so you're following them. It'll help make the heart cleaned, and cleanliness inside and cleanliness outside. Then the deeper part is what Lord Chaitanya taught, and it's in Chaitanya Charitamrita. So eventually you can read Chaitanya Charitamrita, where the mood of Jagannath worship is Jagannath Rath Yatra, where Krishna wants to be taken by the gopis from Kurukshetra back to Vrindavan. That's Rath Yatra. So when Krishna is away, he's in Dwarka. And Jagannath is Krishna in Dwarka, in the mood of Purushottama. It's Purushottam Kshetra. That's the place, Puri. Purushottam Kshetra. So the place where the Supreme Lord But it's not just Dwarka. It's Krishna once a year being taken to Vrindavan. Gundicha is Vrindavan. Anyway, so it's all in Chaitanya Charitamrita, and it's profound. But that's an internal cultivation that comes from as one's heart becomes pure, and some appreciation for that, the mood of Jagannath, the mood of worship of Jagannath. And then in course of time, you come to know the merciful pastimes that Jagannath exchanges with his devotees, but it's for his devotees, the ones who have become purified. And he's very merciful. Very merciful. Anything else? Okay, thank you very much. Srila Prabhupada.
Jai.
Jai.